All right, backyard detectives, now that you have become more familiar with weathering, which is that process that rocks get broken down, you're going to get to go on a hike to look for evidence of weathering. Now, from the video, you guys saw there's two types of weathering. There's the chemical weathering. That means whether it's acid rain or iron that's in rocks, as it rusts, that chemical reaction causes the rocks to break. But also there's physical weathering, like as water flows, those rocks are cracking and that bumping into each other, and they get tumbled and rounded and broken down into smaller pieces of sediment. So this weathering doesn't just happen in videos or in a book, it's happening all around us. So you guys get to be backyard detectives and head into your neighborhood, look for clues. So you guys have your charts. You're gonna wanna grab your backyard detective sheet. I've got mine here as I went out on my hike, and we're gonna be looking for evidence of how rocks are getting broken down into smaller pieces. So I made a note about how there's some rust by the wetlands in our yard, and with this example I was looking for rust. It isn't a rock, but it is iron does come from the ground, and as it rusts, that's a form of a chemical reaction that breaks it into smaller pieces. So can you find evidence of rust? And what I'm going to do is snap a photo. Then on your sheet with your pencil, you'll have to circle, is that an example of physical weathering or chemical weathering? So I wrote my rust, I wrote by the wetlands, but I also snapped a photo, and then I'm gonna circle that it was a form of what type. I don't want to give it away. So you guys have to be on the hunt for that. And then as you can see, I have to look for some evidence of broken rock. I did find some potholes earlier on my hike as I was over by Blandford. And then there are some cracks I know are forming in my driveway. So on my sheet, and as your sheet, we need to circle what type of weathering is that? Is it physical or chemical? Hi, fourth graders. I found another clue. Can you tell where I'm at? So, as I mentioned, weathering and erosion is happening all around us, even as you notice Mrs. Krieger in our video at the beginning showed some previous playground erosion. Well, I happen to be at school, and I am noticing that there is evidence of erosion here. All right. So as you guys go on your neighborhood hikes and you look around, I'm noticing here even at school, we have an erosion issue. Where do you think all these rocks and soil came from? So on my chart, I'm going to take a picture of this space and add it to a place where I found evidence of erosion. All right, so now I'm down in the end of my driveway, because the third part of your hike, or the third step in your hike, is to be looking for evidence of how that rock, once it gets broken down, it gets moved. So if you remember, that word is erosion, and that's the movement of those pieces of weathered rock as it gets pushed around by either wind, or in this case, I think at the end of my driveway, water, especially as it's a nice rainy day today. So down here at the edge of the driveway, this once used to be a big chunk of driveway, but it's gotten broken down. I see a line here, but then there's all these pieces of tiny bits of rock that were a part of the concrete. So on your chart, I wrote where your driveway meets the road. I found pieces of that. So there's some depositing going on. But then as I went to Blandford today, I saw some evidence of erosion where the sediment is getting taken away by water as it moves around. So your challenge is, can you find two more places? Can you find two more places in your nearby area where you can find evidence of either erosion or deposition? And that, remember that erosion is evidence of it getting carried away. So on a nice rainy day, you might see evidence of erosion with sediment in the puddles as it sediment getting pulled down by the running water, and then as the puddles down, it's gonna deposit at the edge of your driveway. So that erosion and weathering is just an ongoing process. It takes small little chunks at a time, but over time it can do some big damage. So I'm excited for you guys to become backyard detectives, geologists. Take a hike in a nearby area, look for evidence of this weathering and erosion. It's beautiful that God makes the world to change, that stream's gonna meander and change over time, and through the beauty of it, He takes care of this world. But also, as we think for the future, we wanna also take care of places as we're stewarding over them. And how can we prevent erosion? So as you guys investigate, I hope you see evidence of these neat science vocabulary words you've been learning. And I look forward to some pictures if you guys can share those as you go. But through it all, just enjoy the adventure of learning and how we can understand more about these awesome processes, that the little rocks that we are looking at once used to be a part of a huge piece of rock, and that things are getting broken and down and moved all around.